He married her for a bet, $5 million on the table. She was the woman no one expected him to choose. A plus-size black woman. Quiet, fearless, unimpressed by his money. He thought 6 months would be easy. No love, no emotions, just a contract. But the night she collapsed in his arms, everything changed. What he didn't know was that she was fighting an underlying ailment. And what she didn't know was that the man who made a bet on her would risk everything to save her. This is not just a love story. It's a story about pride breaking, healing beginning, and a man who lost a bet, but found his heart. Watch till the end, because the ending will change how you see love. The city of Seoul glittered beneath the glass walls of the private penthouse lounge. Kong Sent sat comfortably on a leather couch, one leg crossed over the other, his suit jacket open, his posture relaxed, like a man who owned not just the building, but the world outside it. Across from him sat Lee Jae-min, his longtime friend, rival, and the only man bold enough to challenge him. Kong Sent lifted his glass, watching the amber liquid swirl lazily. "You know," he said casually, "sometimes I wonder why you still compete with me." Jae-min chuckled, leaning back. "Because one day I might win." Kong Sent laughed, a low, confident sound. "Win?" He shook his head slowly. "Jae-min, let's be honest. From school to business, women to money, every competition we've ever had." He raised his glass, slightly. "I won." Jae-min didn't deny it. It was true. They had competed since their teenage years, grades, sports, startups, investments. Kong Sent always came out on top. Always richer. Always admired. Always desired. And women. That was Kong Sent's favorite battlefield. Models. Actresses. Influencers. Heiresses. He took them without effort and discarded them without emotion. Money made everything easy. Kong Sent leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, eyes sharp with pride. "I can get anything I want," he continued. "Anything. With money, power, or influence. There's nothing left to prove." Jae-min studied him quietly, swirling his own drink. "Nothing," he repeated. Kong Sent smirked. "Nothing." For a moment, only the city lights spoke. Then Jae-min sat up straighter. "What if I told you there's still one thing you've never truly conquered?" Kong Sent raised an eyebrow, amused. "Careful," he said lightly. "This sounds like the beginning of another loss for you." Jae-min smiled, but this time it wasn't playful. "It's marriage." Kong Sent burst out laughing. "Marriage?" He waved a dismissive hand. "That's not conquest. That's a business arrangement with unnecessary emotions." "Exactly," Jae-min said calmly. "And emotions are where you fail." The laughter faded. Kong Sent's eyes narrowed slightly. "I don't fail. You avoid," Jae-min corrected. "You've never loved. Never stayed. Never committed without an exit plan." Kong Sent leaned back again, unbothered. "Because love is weakness. And I don't do weakness." Jae-min exhaled, then placed his glass down gently. "Then let's test that." Kong Sent turned fully toward him now. "I'm listening." Jae-min reached into his jacket, pulling out his phone. He tapped the screen once, then slid it across the table. On the screen was a photo. A woman. Black. Plus size. Soft-faced. Confident eyes. Not glamorous. Not polished. Not the kind of woman Kong Sent ever looked twice at. Kong Sent stared. Then he laughed. "You're joking." Jae-min's voice was steady. "Her name is Danielle Thompson. A black American woman. Independent. Fearless. Doesn't chase money. Doesn't worship status." Kong Sent scoffed. And she doesn't want you." That got his attention. Kong Sent picked up the phone, examining the photo more closely, his expression unreadable. "She's fat," he said bluntly. Jae-min didn't flinch. "She's human." Kong Sent smirked again. "So what's the game?" Jae-min leaned forward. "You marry her." Silence slammed into the room. "For 6 months," Jae-min continued. "A real marriage. Living together. Public. No divorce." Kong Sent's smile returned, slow and cruel. "And the catch, you must not fall in love." Kong Sent laughed again, louder this time. "That's easy." Jae-min's eyes darkened. "If you succeed, I'll give you $5 million. Kong Sent raised his glass. "And when I win?" Jae-min met his gaze. "You'll finally meet a woman money can't buy." Kong Sent clinked his glass against Jae-min's. "Deal." He took a slow sip, eyes still on the photo. "A fat girl," he muttered confidently. 6 months. What Kong Sent didn't know was that this woman would become the only loss he never recovered from. The luxury apartment overlooked the Han River, its windows tall and unforgiving. Outside, Seoul moved fast, bright, loud, ambitious. Inside, Danielle worked calmly, earbuds in, humming softly to an old soul song as she wiped the last trace of water from the floor. She was a domestic worker in Korea, and she was not embarrassed. Most people expected shame. Danielle carried pride instead. Her body was thick, unapologetic. Her movements steady. Her eyes sharp with intelligence that most people never bothered to look for. She had come to Korea chasing stability, not pity. She met Jae-min in the hospital where she one time spoke about not minding getting into a contract marriage before. So it was quite easy for him to choose her as the bet with his friend. When Kang Sent met Danielle, he expected desperation. What he did not expect was confidence. Danielle walked into the private lounge wearing simple clothes, no makeup, no pretense. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her posture straight. She looked Kang Sent directly in the eye. No fear, no awe, no apology. Kang Sent blinked. This was not how this usually went. You're earlier than I expected, he said coolly. Danielle shrugged. I don't waste time. Kang Sent leaned back, crossing his arms. You know why you're here? Yes, Danielle said. A bet. That surprised him. You're aware of it. Your friend told me, she replied. I don't like surprises that involve my dignity. Kang Sent studied her again. Really studied her this time. You're honest, he said. I respect that. She laughed softly. No, you respect control. Let's not confuse the two. Silence. Then Kang Sent smirked. Fine. You know the deal. 6 months. Marriage. No love. No attachment. Danielle nodded. I accept. His smirk froze. You do? He asked, genuinely surprised. Yes, she said simply. But there are conditions. Kang Sent raised an eyebrow. Conditions? Danielle leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. You will not control me. He scoffed. You'll be my wife. On paper, she corrected. Not your possession. She continued, ticking points off with her fingers. I will continue my job. I will live my life. I will not fake emotions for cameras. And when the 6 months end, we walk away clean. Kang Sent stared at her, annoyed and intrigued. And love, he asked mockingly. Danielle smiled. There will be none, she said. For me especially. That hit something in his pride. You're confident, he said. I'm realistic, she replied. For the first time in years. Kang Sent felt challenged. The wedding happened faster than anyone expected. There were no tears, no romance, no fairy tale vows, just cameras, signatures, and shock. Danielle stood beside Kang Sent during the ceremony, her expression calm, unreadable. She wore a simple dress, not extravagant, not dramatic. She didn't want to look like she was trying to belong in his world. Kang, on the other hand, looked exactly like himself, controlled, confident, distant. To everyone watching, it looked like a powerful man claiming something new. But inside the marriage, there was nothing to claim. The house they moved into was massive, too quiet, too perfect. White walls, expensive furniture, a place designed for display, not living. On their first morning together, Danielle woke up early. She moved quietly through the kitchen, made breakfast out of habit, and placed 2 plates on the table. When Kang entered, freshly dressed, she didn't greet him. He sat down across from her, watching her eat calmly. You don't talk much, he said. I do, Danielle replied without looking up. Just not unnecessarily. He frowned slightly. She finished eating, washed her plate, and walked past him. I'll be late, she added. I have work. That was the pattern. Every day, Danielle stayed in her room when she was home. She locked the door, not out of fear, but boundaries. She left early for the charity home and returned in the evening, tired but fulfilled. No shared meals. No forced conversations. No pretending. Kang Sent wasn't used to this. Women usually tried too hard around him, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, dressing to impress, waiting for approval. Danielle did none of that. It irritated him. So he did what he always did. He bought things. The first gift arrived 3 days after the wedding. A designer handbag placed neatly on her bed. Danielle glanced at it, unimpressed. The next day, jewelry arrived. Then shoes. Then dresses worth more than some people's yearly salary. Danielle returned them all. Why? Kang asked one evening, clearly annoyed. She looked up from her laptop. Because I didn't ask for them. You're my wife, he said. It's normal. For you, she replied calmly. Not for me. That answer lingered. Kang began inviting her to events. Corporate dinners. Luxury galas. Media appearances. No, she said the first time. No, she said the second. By the 5th time he stopped asking. And yet, despite her distance, Kang found himself watching her. Some nights, when the house was quiet, he noticed she sat alone on the balcony, wrapped in a cardigan, staring into the night like she was listening to something only she could hear. She never used her phone, never played music, never cried, just sat there. She didn't ask questions about his work, didn't complain about his absence, didn't demand attention. She treated the marriage exactly how she promised, like a contract. And slowly, Kong Sent realized something unsettling. He had married a woman who didn't need him. And for the first time in his life, that scared him. Kong Sent stood in front of the mirror adjusting his cufflinks for the third time. He rarely felt nervous before events like this. Galas were his territory, places where power spoke louder than words and reputation bowed before him. But tonight was different. Tonight he wanted Danielle beside him. He had begged her to follow, and somehow she accepted. When they arrived at the gala, the reaction was immediate. People turned. Whispers followed. Eyes scanned Danielle from head to toe. Slowly, cruelly, without shame. She's his wife. That's unexpected. He could have done better. Doesn't match him at all. Danielle heard everything. She felt the stares like needles, sharp and unforgiving. Her shoulders stiffened, her fingers curling slightly into her clutch. She had lived with judgment her whole life, but this felt different. This was public, humiliating. Kong noticed. He also heard the whispers. At first, he ignored them. He had always ignored noise. But then he saw Danielle's face change. Her eyes dimmed slightly, her posture shift. She leaned toward him. "I want to leave," she whispered. Before he could respond, a group of elegantly dressed women passed them, laughter sharp and deliberate. One of them glanced at Danielle and scoffed. "I thought Kong Sent had taste." That was it. Danielle turned away, her foot already stepping back. But Kang's hand closed around hers. Firm. "No," he said quietly. "Stay." She looked at him shocked. "Why?" she asked under her breath. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, Kong turned around. He faced the women. The room seemed to freeze. "She is my wife," Kong said loudly, his voice cutting through the air like glass. "And she deserves respect." The women stiffened. Kong took a step forward. "If you have opinions," he continued coldly, "keep them to yourselves. I don't tolerate disrespect toward my family." Gasps echoed. Danielle stared at him, stunned. No one had ever defended her like that. Not publicly. Not without hesitation. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. People avoided them. Whispers softened. Eyes watched differently now, not with mockery but fear. As they stepped out, Danielle broke the silence. "Why did you do that?" she asked quietly. Kong kept his eyes on the road. "Do what?" "Defend me." He exhaled slowly. "At least you're my wife," he said. "I won't let anyone disrespect what's mine." She turned toward him. "For a few months," she corrected softly. He glanced at her. "What if it wasn't?" he asked before thinking. The words hung in the air. Danielle's face hardened. "Don't say things you don't mean," she said. "This marriage has an ending. Don't confuse yourself." They reached home. Danielle stepped out of the car first. She walked toward the door, her steps slow, her body suddenly heavy. Then, she staggered. Her legs gave out. Kong dropped everything and rushed forward, catching her just before she hit the ground. "Danielle." Her body felt limp in his arms. Her breathing was shallow. Fear, real, uncontrollable fear, crashed into him. In that moment, the gala, the whispers, the bet, the money, none of it mattered. All he could think was one terrifying thought. I can't lose her. And he didn't even understand why. The hospital lights were too bright. Kong Sent paced the narrow hallway outside the emergency room, his expensive shoes squeaking softly against the polished floor. His suit jacket was still draped over his arm, forgotten. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly disheveled. Small signs of disorder that never existed around him. Minutes earlier, Danielle had collapsed in his arms. Her weight, warm, real, fragile, was something he still felt in his chest. The way her body went limp. The way her breath came shallow and uneven. He had carried her into the hospital himself. A nurse rushed past him, pushing a trolley. Kong stopped her instinctively. "How is she?" he demanded. "She's being stabilized," the nurse replied quickly. "Please wait." Wait. Kong Sent hated that word. He sat down heavily on one of the plastic chairs, his hands clasped together, elbows resting on his knees. His mind raced, fast, chaotic, uncontrollable. This wasn't part of the deal. This wasn't part of the bet. $5 million suddenly felt ridiculous, meaningless. He would give 10 times that amount just to hear her voice again, calm and sharp, telling him she was fine. Hours earlier, she had stood tall beside him at the gala. Now, she lay unconscious behind closed doors. The door finally opened. A middle-aged doctor stepped out. "Mr. Kong." Kong stood up immediately. "Yes. How is she?" "She's stable for now," the doctor said. "But we need to talk." Those words hit harder than any insult Kong had ever received. They moved into a small consultation room. Kong sat, his posture stiff, his jaw clenched. The doctor folded his hands. Your wife has an underlying heart condition, he began. It's been there for years. Kang's eyes widened slightly. A heart condition? Yes, the doctor continued. Her weight places additional strain on her heart. Stress, exhaustion, emotional pressure. Any of these could trigger episodes like the one you witnessed tonight. Kong swallowed hard. Is she dying? The doctor paused. She's not dying tonight, he said carefully. But if nothing changes, the risk is very real. The room felt smaller. What needs to change? Kong asked quietly. Her lifestyle, the doctor replied. Healthy eating, gradual weight loss, emotional support. This is not something she can, or should do alone. Support. That word echoed in Kang's head. She needs someone consistent, the doctor added. Someone patient. Someone who encourages her, not pressures her. Kong nodded slowly, his chest tight. I didn't know, he muttered. The doctor studied him briefly. Many people don't, he said. Some hide pain very well. When Kong was finally allowed to see her, Danielle lay asleep in the hospital bed, machines softly beeping beside her. Her face looked peaceful but pale, vulnerable in a way he had never seen before. He stood there unmoving. This was the same woman who had shut him out with calm words. The same woman who returned his gifts untouched. The same woman who refused to bend. And yet, she had been carrying this alone. Kong pulled a chair closer and sat beside her bed. For the first time since they met, he reached out and gently held her hand. It was warm, real. His throat tightened. What are you doing to me? He whispered. He thought about the bet. About how confident he had been. About how easily he had laughed. 6 months. No emotions. Now, the idea of those 6 months ending suddenly terrified him. He imagined the house without her quiet presence. The balcony empty. The kitchen silent. The thought unsettled him deeply. He realized then, slowly, painfully, that this wasn't about winning anymore. This was about losing. And Kong's scent had never been prepared for that. Danielle stirred slightly, her brows knitting together. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, confused. What happened? She whispered weakly. You fainted, Kong said, quickly leaning forward. You're in the hospital. She sighed softly, as if this was an inconvenience, more than a shock. I'm sorry, she murmured. For what? He asked. For causing trouble, she replied. That broke something inside him. You didn't cause trouble, Kong said firmly. You scared me. She looked at him then, really looked at him. You, she asked faintly. Scared? He nodded once. Yes. For a long moment, they stared at each other, something unspoken hanging between them. She shifted slightly, uncomfortable, not from pain but from attention. She wasn't used to being looked at like this, like she mattered in a way that went beyond obligation. Kong stared at her for a long moment before finally speaking. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was low, controlled, but there was something underneath it hurt. Danielle turned her head slowly to face him. Tell you what? She asked, though she already knew. Your sickness, Kong said. Your heart. Why didn't you say anything? She looked away. The silence stretched. Then she laughed softly, bitter, tired. So you could pity me, she asked. Is that what you wanted? Kong frowned. That's not. No, she interrupted gently. I didn't want that. She took a slow breath, her chest rising and falling carefully. I've lived with this for years, Danielle continued. Doctors, warnings, people telling me what I should do with my body, my life, my time. She glanced back at him, her eyes calm but sad. I'm tired, Kong. I didn't come to Korea to be someone's burden. His chest tightened. You're not a burden, he said immediately. She smiled faintly. That's easy to say now, she replied. But this marriage, it was never about caring. It was a contract. A bet. The word bet hung between them like poison. If I told you, she continued, you would have stayed because you felt sorry for me, or because you felt responsible. I don't want love that comes from obligation. Kong swallowed hard. And if I survive it, Danielle added quietly, then good. If I don't. She paused. Then at least I lived on my own terms. That broke him. You talk like you've already given up, he said, his voice strained. Danielle didn't answer immediately. Do you know how that sounds? Kong continued, turning back to her. Like you've already accepted dying. She met his gaze, steadily. I've accepted reality, she said softly. That's different. Kong shook his head. No, he said firmly. You don't get to decide that alone. She raised an eyebrow slightly. And why not? Because you're not alone anymore, he replied without thinking. The words surprised both of them. Danielle stared at him. You don't mean that, she said quietly. I do. Kong said, stepping closer to the bed. I know this started as something stupid. A game. A bet. His voice cracked slightly. But sitting outside that room tonight, not knowing if he would wake up, he stopped, swallowing hard. I realized something, he continued. I don't care about winning anymore. Danielle's eyes softened. You don't have to pretend, she said. I'm not pretending, Kong said. She looked confused. I should have noticed, he went on. The way you avoid food sometimes. The way you sit alone. The way you push people away before they can leave. Danielle's lips trembled slightly. I promised myself, she whispered, that I wouldn't need anyone. And that promise is killing you, Kong said quietly. The words hit deep. Tears welled up in Danielle's eyes, not dramatic, not loud. Just silent tears she quickly wiped away. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely audible. But I don't want to be weak. Kong reached out again, gently cupping her hand in both of his. Being scared doesn't make you weak, he said. Facing it alone does. She looked down at their joined hands. You don't owe me this, she whispered. I know, Kong replied. That's why I'm choosing it. She searched his face, trying to find arrogance, pride, anything familiar. But all she saw was sincerity. I'll be there, Kong said softly. Doctor visits. Diet changes. Bad days. Good days. All of it. Danielle shook her head, slightly. You don't even know how hard this is, she said. I'll learn, he replied. And when you're tired, I'll remind you why you're trying. Her tears fell freely now. No one has ever said that to me, she confessed. Kong squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to survive this alone, he said. Not anymore. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The machines continued their steady rhythm. And in that quiet hospital room, something shifted, not into romance, not yet, but into connection. Two people, wounded in different ways, choosing, just for this moment, to stand together. The house felt different the moment they returned from the hospital. Not quieter, not louder, just changed. Danielle stepped inside slowly, her body still weak, her mind heavy. She dropped her bag on the chair and paused when she noticed the smell. Something was different. She walked toward the kitchen and stopped. The counters were clean. Too clean. The fridge door stood open, and inside, everything she recognized was gone. No sugary drinks. No processed snacks. No instant meals. Instead, neatly arranged containers filled the shelves, fresh vegetables, lean proteins, fruits, labeled meal boxes. Danielle stared. What is this? She asked quietly. Behind her, Kong cleared his throat. A start. She turned slowly. He stood there with his sleeves rolled up, phone in hand, looking strangely serious, like a man preparing for a board meeting, not a kitchen conversation. I changed the food, he said. I called a nutritionist. She'll be here tomorrow morning. Danielle blinked. You what? I also spoke to a trainer, Kong continued, as if reading off a report. Nothing extreme. Doctor approved. Slow progress. She laughed softly, shaking her head. Kong, she said, this is too much. He frowned. It's not enough. She walked closer to him. You don't have to turn my sickness into a project, she said gently. I'll handle it. He met her eyes. You handled it alone, he replied. And it almost killed you. That silenced her. Kong inhaled deeply, then continued. I clear my schedule, he said. 7 weeks. Her eyes widened. What? No meetings. No overseas trips. No galas. He shrugged lightly. The company will survive. Danielle stared at him like he had lost his mind. You can't do that, she said. You're Kong's scent. And you're my wife, he replied simply. She scoffed softly. Only on paper. Still, he said, I want to do this. The word want lingered. She searched his face for obligation, pity, guilt. She found none. Later that evening, Kong rolled out exercise mats in the living room. Danielle stared at them. You expect me to do this now? No, he said. Tomorrow. Tonight is just planning. He handed her a notebook. Inside were handwritten notes. Meal times. Rest days. Doctor appointments. Gentle workouts. Her throat tightened. You really did this, she whispered. Yes, Kong said. And I'll do it again if you try to quit. She raised an eyebrow. You're very confident. I'm stubborn, he replied. It's one of my worst qualities. And best, she said without thinking. Their eyes met. The next morning, Kong knocked on her door early. Time to walk, he announced. Danielle groaned. You're enjoying this too much. I don't enjoy sweating, he replied. I enjoy commitment. They walked slowly around the compound. Danielle tired easily. Kong never rushed her. When she stopped, he stopped. When she sat, he sat. No pressure. No judgment. Just presence. Days turned into a rhythm. Cooking together. Stretching together. Quiet encouragement. Sometimes Danielle cried from frustration. Sometimes she snapped at him. He stayed. One evening, as they cleaned dishes side by side, she spoke softly. Why are you really doing this? He paused, then answered honestly. Because when I thought I might lose you, he said, I realized I don't want a life where you're not in it. She swallowed hard. You're changing, she said. So are you, he replied. They stood there, hands brushing accidentally. Neither pulled away. And for the first time since the bet was made, their marriage no longer felt like a contract. It felt like a choice. Morning came early. They began the exercise. At first it was fine. The cool morning air helped. Her breathing stayed steady. Kong matched her pace, not ahead, not behind, beside her. But after 15 minutes, her steps slowed. Her chest tightened. Her legs burned. Kong, she whispered, stopping abruptly. He turned immediately. What is it? She bent forward slightly, hands on her knees, breathing uneven. It hurts, she said. Everything hurts. Kong crouched in front of her, concern etched across his face. We can stop, he said instantly. We've done enough today. She shook her head, frustrated. No, she said, her voice cracking. If I stop now, I won't come back tomorrow. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm tired of starting over, she confessed. I'm tired of fighting my own body. Kong stayed quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. Look at me, he said softly. She lifted her head, slowly. You're not weak, he continued. You're doing something most people never even attempt. Her lips trembled. I don't feel strong. That's because strength doesn't announce itself, Kong replied. It whispers. And you've been listening. She laughed, weakly through tears. You're not very motivational, she muttered. He smiled faintly. I'm honest. He stood up and extended his hand. 1 more minute, he said. Just one. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. They walked. Slowly. Carefully. When she stumbled, he steadied her. When she paused, he paused. They finished the route together. When they finally stopped, Danielle laughed breathlessly, collapsing onto the bench nearby. I hate you, she said between breaths. Kong chuckled. I'll accept that. They sat quietly for a moment, watching the sun rise fully. I almost quit, she admitted. But you didn't, he replied. Back home, the house filled with familiar sounds. Water running, cutting boards tapping, soft music playing from the kitchen speaker. Danielle leaned against the counter while Kong moved around with surprising ease. You're enjoying this, she said knowingly. What? He asked, pretending innocence. Cooking, she replied. You smile more when we're in here. He paused. I do, he admitted. It's grounding. She smiled softly. They cooked together, laughing when he added too much spice again. I never knew I'd enjoy something this ordinary, he said. Ordinary is underrated, Danielle replied. Weeks passed. The scale became less frightening. One morning, Danielle stood staring at it for a long time. Kong, she called quietly. He appeared immediately. What is it? She stepped off the scale slowly, eyes wide. I've lost 30 kilograms. Kong froze. 30. She nodded, disbelief flooding her face. I feel lighter, she whispered. Not just in my body. In my chest. Kong smiled, wide, genuine proud. I told you, he said. You can do better. Her eyes filled with tears again. But this time they were different. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For standing by me, she replied. For not leaving when it got hard. He stepped closer. I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. She smiled. And in that moment, Kong Sent realized something dangerous and beautiful all at once. He wasn't helping her because he had to. He was doing it because he wanted to. And that scared him more than any bet ever could. Weeks passed, and the morning started like every other morning. Quiet, determined, hopeful. The air was cool as Danielle and Kong finished their exercise routine. Sweat clung lightly to her skin. Her breathing heavier than usual, but steady. Kong watched her closely, he always did now, counting her breaths without realizing it. You did great today, he said, handing her a bottle of water. Danielle smiled faintly. I'm tired, she admitted, but the good kind. She took a few steps forward. Then suddenly her smile faded. Kong, her knees buckled. Time slowed. Kong dropped everything and caught her just before she hit the ground. Danielle, he shouted, panic ripping through his voice. Her body felt frighteningly limp in his arms. Not again. Not like this. His heart pounded violently as he lifted her, his hand shaking, his breath uneven. Stay with me, he whispered desperately. Please don't do this. At the hospital, doctors rushed her in immediately. Kong stood frozen in the hallway, his chest heaving, his hands clenched so tightly they hurt. His vision blurred, not from exhaustion, but from tears he refused to let fall. He paced, stopped, and the door finally opened. The doctor stepped out, calm, composed. Mr. Kong. Kong rushed forward. How is she? His voice cracked. Is she? She's fine, the doctor said quickly. Kong froze. Fine. She collapsed from exhaustion, the doctor explained. Her body is adjusting to the changes. But what you're doing? The doctor paused, then smiled slightly. It's working. Kang's knees nearly gave out. She's lost 50 kilograms, the doctor continued. And her heart function has improved significantly. Her vitals are stronger than they've been in years. Kong stared, stunned. So, she's okay. She's more than okay, the doctor replied. She just needs rest. And hydration. Kong bowed deeply, without caring how it looked. Thank you, he whispered. When he entered the hospital room, Danielle was awake, resting against the pillows for attached to her arm. She looked tired, but alive. The moment she saw his face, her eyes softened. You look terrible, she said weakly. Kong laughed shakily. I thought I lost you, he admitted, his voice breaking as he walked closer. She frowned slightly. I'm sorry, she whispered. No, he said quickly, shaking his head. Don't apologize. He sat beside her, his hands trembling as he reached for hers. They said you're doing well, he told her softly. Your heart is stronger. You've lost 50 kilograms. Her eyes widened slightly. 50, she whispered. Yes, he said, smiling through tears. I'm so proud of you. Her lips trembled. I couldn't have done it alone, she admitted. I would have quit. He squeezed her hand gently. You didn't, he said. And you won't. Tears slipped down her cheeks now, quiet, overwhelmed tears. Thank you, she whispered, for not giving up on me. Kong leaned closer, emotions swelling dangerously in his chest. I was so scared, he confessed. Standing out there, I realized something. She looked at him. I don't want a world where you're not in it. The word surprised them both. Before she could respond, Kong gently leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't planned. It was gratitude, relief, love trying to find its way out. Danielle closed her eyes, breathing him in. For a long moment, they stayed like that, hands joined, hearts pounding, fear finally loosening its grip. And in that quiet hospital room, Kong Sent finally understood something that money had never taught him. Winning meant nothing if it meant losing her. Month passed, and Danielle sat alone on the balcony, knees pulled to her chest, wrapped in a soft cardigan. The city lights below flickered like distant stars, but tonight she wasn't looking at them. She was counting days. 7. That was all that remained of the contract. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn. Kong had just returned from work. He stopped when he saw her sitting there. The same place she always went when her thoughts became too loud. Why are you sitting out here alone? He asked gently. Danielle inhaled slowly before answering. I was waiting for you. That alone made his chest tighten. He walked closer and leaned against the balcony railing beside her. What's wrong? He asked. She didn't look at him. The marriage contract ends next week, Danielle said quietly. The words hit him harder than he expected. I know, Kong replied, though hearing it aloud felt different. Too final. She finally turned to face him. I wanted to tell you before you heard it from someone else, she continued. I'll start packing soon. I don't want to rush things at the last minute. Packing. The word echoed in his head like a warning bell. Where will you go? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I haven't decided, she said honestly. Maybe back to the charity home, full-time. Maybe somewhere quieter. Kong stared at her, disbelief slowly turning into panic. So that's it, he asked. You just leave. She nodded softly. That was always the agreement. He took a step closer. Danielle. This was never meant to last, she interrupted gently. We both knew that. No, Kong said firmly. I thought I knew that. She frowned slightly. What does that mean? Between breaths, Kong chuckled. I'll accept that. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. It means I was wrong. She stood up slowly now, tension thick between them. Kong, she said carefully, don't do this. Do what? He asked. Confuse kindness with love, she replied. You stood by me because you're a decent person, because you felt responsible. That's not true, he said immediately. You don't know that, she countered. People leave when things get easy again. I won't wait around for that. Her words stung because they carried truth and fear. Kong stepped in front of her, blocking her path. Look at me, he said. She hesitated, then did. I didn't clear my schedule for 7 weeks because I felt sorry for you, he said. I didn't cook with you, sweat with you, panic over you because of responsibility. His voice trembled now. I did it because I don't know how to live without you anymore. Danielle's breath caught. Kong. You're not leaving, he said firmly. Her eyes widened. You don't get to decide that. I do, he replied, because I'm not letting you walk out of my life like this was just a deal. She shook her head. This marriage was a bet, she whispered. I was the bet. His jaw tightened. I know, he said, and I hate myself for it. Silence stretched painfully. Then Kong dropped his pride completely. I don't want a contract marriage, he said quietly. I want to marry you properly. Her heart pounded violently. What are you saying? She whispered. I'm saying, he continued, voice raw, that I don't care about 6 months. I don't care about bets. I don't care about money. He took her hands in his. I'm not allowing you to go, he said. Not because I own you, but because I choose you. Tears welled up in Danielle's eyes. You're scared of being alone, she said. That's all this is. No, Kong replied. I'm scared of losing you. Her walls cracked visibly. She searched his face. And if you regret this, she asked, if you wake up one day and realize you didn't want me after all. Kong shook his head slowly. I already wake up every day afraid of losing you, he said. That's not regret. That's love. The word hung between them. Dangerous, powerful, undeniable. Danielle broke down then. Quiet sobs shook her body as she covered her face. I'm terrified, she admitted. I finally started believing I could live, that I deserve more. Kong pulled her gently into his arms. Then stay, he whispered. Let me love you properly this time. She clutched his shirt, crying freely now. I don't want to be someone's mistake, she whispered. You're my choice, Kong said firmly. My best one. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other as the city lights watched silently. The contract still existed, but love had already torn it apart. And just like that, their love begins. 6 months later, the morning air was soft and bright. The kind of morning that felt intentional, like the universe had paused just long enough to watch two people choose each other properly. Danielle stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. She had lost so much weight, not just from her body, but from her spirit too. The heaviness she once carried in her chest was gone. Her face was slimmer now, her jawline sharper, her eyes brighter. Strength replaced fear. Confidence replaced doubt. But more than the physical change, it was the way she stood, upright, calm, unashamed, that told a real story. She touched her chest lightly. Her heart was steady, healthy, alive. The wedding dress hugged her figure perfectly, elegant without being loud. It didn't try to hide who she used to be. It celebrated who she had become. You look unbelievable, the stylist whispered. Danielle smiled softly. I feel unbelievable, she replied. Outside, guests gathered beneath white floral arches, overlooking the open sky. The wedding wasn't extravagant for the sake of showing wealth. It was intentional, warm, real. This time, there were no contracts waiting to expire. Only vows meant to last. Kong stood at the altar, dressed in a tailored white suit, hands clasped tightly in front of him. He had faced hostile boardrooms, ruthless competitors, and public scandals without blinking. But today his hands trembled. His eyes searched the aisle. When the music began and Danielle appeared, the world seemed to stop. A collective breath was held. She walked slowly, gracefully, her head high. There was no insecurity in her steps, no fear of judgment, only quiet confidence and certainty. Kang's breath caught. This was the woman who had collapsed in his arms, the woman who had refused his gifts, the woman who had changed his life without asking permission. And now, she was walking toward him by choice. Tears blurred his vision. You did this, a voice murmured beside him. Kong turned slightly. Lee Jae-min stood there, dressed sharply, watching the scene with a complicated expression. Pride, guilt, relief, all tangled together. She's incredible, Jae-min said quietly. Yes, Kong replied. She is. As Danielle reached the altar, their eyes locked. Everything else faded. The officiant spoke, but Kong barely heard the words. All he could see was Danielle, strong, alive, smiling softly at him like she trusted him completely. When it was time for vows, Kong went first. He swallowed hard. I once believed love was weakness, he began. I believed everything, including people, could be controlled. Danielle's eyes softened. I was wrong, Kong continued. You taught me that strength is choosing to stay, even when it's hard. You taught me that love isn't possession, it's partnership. His voice cracked. I don't promise perfection, he said, but I promise honesty, support, and a lifetime of choosing you every single day. Danielle wiped a tear and stepped forward. I spent most of my life believing I had to survive alone, she said softly. I thought independence meant never needing anyone. She looked directly at Kong. But you didn't save me, she continued. You stood beside me while I saved myself. Kong closed his eyes, briefly overwhelmed. I choose you, Danielle said firmly. Not because I need you, but because I want you. The words hit deeper than any declaration Kong had ever heard. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, applause erupted. Kong pulled Danielle into his arms and kissed her, not rushed, not desperate, but full of gratitude and reverence. Cheers followed. Laughter. Tears. From the crowd, Jae-min watched them quietly. He lifted his glass later during the reception, drawing attention. I once made a bet, he said honestly. And I lost. Soft laughter rippled through the guests. But losing that bet, Jae-min continued, looking at Danielle, was the best thing that ever happened to my friend. Danielle smiled knowingly. Kong squeezed her hand. As the sun dipped lower and music filled the air, they danced together slowly. No cameras, no pressure. Just them. 6 months ago, their marriage had been a lie. Today, it was the truest thing either of them had ever known. And Kong Sent finally understood. He didn't win her by money. He didn't win her by power. He won her by becoming someone worthy of love. 1 year later, Danielle sat on the couch, rocking their baby girl in her arms. She was small, delicate, with Danielle's eyes and Kang's stubborn little frown. Wrapped in a soft pink blanket, she slept peacefully, completely unaware that she was the miracle neither of her parents had ever planned, but both had prayed for. Kong stood nearby, watching them like it was his favorite thing in the world. He still couldn't believe it sometimes. Him, a father, the man who once believed emotions were weaknesses now melted at the smallest sound his daughter made. Careful, Danielle teased softly. If you stare any harder, she might wake up. Kong smiled and lowered his voice dramatically. I'm guarding her, he whispered. From the world. Danielle laughed quietly. Later that morning, after the nanny arrived, the house settled into a familiar calm. Danielle prepared to head out. The charity home was busy these days. With Kang's support, she had opened a large community center that provided meals, counseling, and medical support for people who had nowhere else to go. It was her dream, and Kang's pride. They sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea like they often did now, slowly without rushing life away. You know, Kong said casually, there's something I never told you. Danielle raised an eyebrow. That tone usually means trouble. He smiled faintly. Do you remember the bet? He asked. Her expression softened, not hurt, not angry, just reflective. Yes, she replied. I remember. I paid Jae-min the $5 million, Kong said. Danielle froze. You did? Yes, he nodded. I paid him myself. Why? She asked gently. Kong leaned back in his chair. Because I didn't want anything between us to be tied to a bet, he said honestly. I didn't want our story to start or end with money. Danielle stared at him for a moment, then smiled. And what did he do with the money? She asked. Kong chuckled. He invested it, he said. Into the charity. Her eyes widened. He said. Kong continued, smiling. If he was going to lose $5 million, he wanted it to mean something. Danielle laughed softly, shaking her head. Life is strange, she murmured. They sat quietly for a moment. Then Danielle looked at Kong carefully. What happened to the arrogant man I met? She asked teasingly. The one who loved competition and pride. Kong laughed, a warm, easy laugh that came naturally now. That man, he said. He died a long time ago. She smiled. I figured. They leaned closer, shoulders touching. Do you remember, Danielle asked softly, when you started catching feelings? Kong didn't hesitate. When you collapsed, he said. That day, I realized winning meant nothing if I lost you. She nodded slowly. And you, he asked. She smiled gently. At the hospital, she replied. When you stayed. When you didn't leave. No one had ever cared for me like that. Kong reached for her hand. And now, he asked. Now, Danielle said, looking toward the hallway where their daughter slept. I feel safe. Kong squeezed her hand gently. I promise, he said softly, to keep making you feel that way. They laughed together as the baby cried softly from the other room. I think our boss is awake, Kong said, standing up quickly. Danielle laughed. She definitely takes after you. As Kong walked toward the nursery, Danielle leaned back in her chair, her heart full. Once, she had been a woman people underestimated. Once, he had been a man ruled by pride. Now they were something better. Partners. Parents. Purpose. And their love, born from the wrong beginning, had become the most beautiful ending. Sometimes, love doesn't begin the right way. Sometimes it starts as a mistake, a bet, or even pain. But this story reminds us that people can change, hearts can heal, and love can grow from the most unexpected places. When we choose patience, kindness, and commitment, Danielle didn't just lose weight. She found her strength. Kong didn't just fall in love. he became a better man. And together, they proved that love is not about perfection, but about showing up and never giving up. Never let anyone reduce your worth to your appearance. Healing takes time, patience, and the right support. Real love is shown through actions, not promises. You don't need to be saved. You need someone who stands beside you. Growth is possible when you refuse to give up on yourself. Thank you for watching. How did this story make you feel? Did it inspire you to believe in second chances or remind you not to give up on yourself? And if you were Danielle, would you have accepted Kong? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Afro Love Diaries, and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional love story. Because here, every heartbeat tells a story.